Hi friends, I am just stopping by. I have missed you during the month of August. Many of you know we took August off from Ignites, and that means I haven't seen as many of you. So I am excited to get back to September, get back to Ignites, and just seeing each of you. When we took August off, we were hearing in several different places, we kept hearing this Matthew 9:17 verse about you don't put old wine into new wineskins. And so we committed to spending the month praying for that, to seeking vision for home, to seeking what's new wine, what are the new things that we need to be open to, and what's old wine, what's the stuff that we need to cherish and to guard and to covet. Covet might not be the right word, but to just hold closely, and then understanding how both of those work together. And we're still, to be honest, we're still working through some of that, but we've got some exciting things coming up, and we can't wait to tell you about them. I'm going to encourage you just to continue to press into that Matthew 9 verse. What does it mean for new wine? What is old wine? What are the things in your life that maybe are old wine that you need to continue to hold close? And what are things that have maybe become habit or ritual or, that you can't put into a new wineskin, that you can't try to make look different, so to say. And it needs a new wineskin. It needs a new place and time of its own, if you will. And so just continue to pray into that. I think as we walk through, this email is going to walk through a lot of those transitions, and I think you'll see some of the things that the Lord really spoke to us, some specific to youth that were so very specific, and I just can't wait to see what He does and how He uses that. So the other thing that several times this month, there was this gardening greenhouse analogy that, again, in multiple different places just was coming at us. And so just paying attention to that and thinking about how are we a greenhouse? How are we growing up prayer and worshipers? How are we nurturing them? Are we nurturing the soil? All of those type of analogies. And then even here's a story that just really sticks with me that I'm going to share. We have this rule at our house that you pull 100 weeds a day, and we fail miserably all the time. But then when I say go out and pull 100 weeds and it's been 3 weeks, the kids do it. And so Carter was out in our prayer garden over across the bridge by the tomb, and he was pulling some weeds. And there's these beautiful, almost like a mustard seed looking thing. They have little yellow flowers, and it was just pretty, but it was a weed. And so he and I are standing there, and he's like, well, Mom, do I pull these or not? And I'm looking at him thinking, they're beautiful. I don't want to pull them. Like, they're beautiful. And yet I'm looking around and I'm like, they're not where they belong. They're not in the right, like, they're weeds, right? They're weeds that grew voluntarily, and yet they're really kind of pretty. And so I ended up saying, Carter, I'm going to let you decide that. If you want to pull them, you pull them. If you think we ought to keep them, we'll keep them. And when I came back later, they were pulled. He had pulled the weeds, and it looked so much better. And so that kind of leads into some of that old wine, new wineskin. What does that look like? What belongs where? And certainly feeds into that greenhouse effect. Fast forward, so that had happened with Carter. And earlier this spring, Tom had lost his wedding ring. And some of you may have seen this on Facebook. But I was just praying into this weeding analogy and understanding that weeds don't necessarily mean ugliness. Another thing that I laugh about often is I grew up on a farm, and sunflowers are weeds. Like on the farm, in the beans, you pull the sunflowers. In the corn, you pull the sunflowers, right? They're weeds. And so at the end of our driveway, we have a patch of sunflowers that I love, and I think they're pretty. And every time I drive in, I'm like, it's amazing that I think those weeds are so pretty. And I purposely let them, like they self-seed. I don't even have to plant them anymore. They just show up. But I purposely let them there because I think they're pretty. The reality is, for a farmer, they're a weed. And they want it out because otherwise they spread all of those seeds when they harvest, and then the next year they have all these volunteer things. And so sometimes when you say weed, it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, because sunflowers are beautiful and people have whole fields of sunflowers, right? And so please don't take that weed analogy in a negative way, but just think through it. And I really see it as weeding is somewhat similar to pruning, or just changing. And so I was praying into that and just processing some fun things that we're going to be doing, but also knowing change is change, and it takes a little bit to get used to. And I actually was gone to a meeting, and I got a text from Tom, back to the part where he'd lost his wedding ring. He found his wedding ring on the root of a weed in our garden. Like, he was pulling a weed out, happened to notice this shiny thing, and it was his wedding ring that he'd lost in April. Um, Concurrent to that, that same day, I was praying, like, God, show me the blessing in this whole weeding analogy, because it does feel a little bit like um, we're taking beautiful things away, or we're removing beautiful things. And for him to that very same day, just the whole vow and the covenant of marriage and what that ring, both for Tom and I, but just in general, what that ring represents, was just a sweet, sweet, just affirmation from the Lord for me in terms of, yeah, there's blessing in weeding too. There's blessing in weeding. And so, again, don't take weeding as a bad thing. But that's an analogy that we have talked through a lot. Again, it's come up. Random people will bring it up at different times in meetings or just in conversation. And I just kind of smile like, yeah, Lord, again, we hear you. So that analogy, which led us then into the greenhouse analogy of you have to tend to the weeds, you have to tend to the soil, you have to take care of your greenhouse in order to grow up replacement plants. And so that's going to be some of what our vision is how are we tending the soil? How are we raising up people when we talk about youth? What does that look like? And you're going to read some things throughout this email that kind of connect with that a little bit and that we're super excited about. I'm just going to close by saying that if you have questions after you read this email, I would love it if you would give me a call. I'd be more than happy to sit down with you and spend some time talking through whatever questions. If you're trying to figure out, I'd love to be more of a part of home. I'm just trying to figure out where the right fit is. Get in touch with myself or Liza. If it's from a worship standpoint, if it's just from a general ministry standpoint, get in touch with me. But we'd love to sit and visit and to help you plug in where is the right place. And most importantly, to get you gazing on the beauty of the Lord. And I just want to end with a verse that connects directly to our mission, and that's Psalm 27:4. One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. And so when I think about home, when I think about one of the things that we've prayed through and that I personally have prayed through a lot this month, it's that, like, how do we connect what we're doing with that mission, and does it connect? And we tried to use that as kind of the plumb line for our decision. So anyway, super, super excited about some upcoming changes, hoping that you will be excited. Can't wait to see you at Ignite again on September 10th, and just looking forward to the new season of fall, and also just to the new season that the Lord's leading us in. Thanks, friends. See you soon.